brake pad identification is essential before any brake job, especially nowadays where cars are fitted with different brake options. And just to complicate things even further, car owners now have a greater choice in aftermarket brake upgrade kits. Properly done, brake pad identification prevents headaches and saves time. Always have a quick check to ensure you have the right brake pads for the job. Sometimes a visual inspection or a back-to-back comparison is enough to see the difference. Other times, when the pad shape is the same, a couple of simple measurements will verify the correct part. The key dimensions to identify brake pads are shape, length, width and thickness. For accurate dimensions of each brake pad, check the Bendix website or the Bendix catalogue app. Here's an example of how to measure a brake pad. The pad length is the total length of the backing plate and friction material, not including any overhanging clips. Measure from the left edge to the backing plate to the right edge, excluding the wear sensor. The pad width consists of the backing plate and friction material, excluding any overhanging clips. The pad is measured from the bottom edge of the back plate to the top edge. If there's any anti-rattle clips, just exclude those. Some pads have shims on the backing plate that wraps around the ends of the pad. In these cases, the pad length measurement includes the shims if they increase the overall length noticeably. The pad thickness is the total thickness from the flat surface of the backing plate to the flat surface of the friction material. Remove any clip-on shims before measuring and include any shims or gaskets that are attached to the back of the backing plate as part of the measurement. The Bendix website and catalogue has a section that shows what the brake pad sets consist of, including the measurements. The measurements are read as length, width and thickness. Sets with different size pads in them will have both measurements shown. Under braking, brake discs and pads absorb large amounts of heat. The brake pad also acts as a heat insulator to slow heat transfer to the brake caliper and other components. As the brake pad wears down, more heat is transferred and parts wear out quicker. Brake pads are recommended to be changed when they're worn down to a thickness of about 3 millimetres. Note the position of each brake pad as you remove them from the brake caliper. Also take note of any broken spring clips or shims that may have come off. Measure the thickness of the pad at several positions along its length. In many cases, your measuring caliper can reach right across the width of the pad. Pads that wear unevenly often show a taper when measured. In extreme cases, this taper is evident visually. Check the variation in thickness along the length of the pad and across the width of the pad. It's normal to have a small taper here as the rotor tries to drag the pad in the direction it's turning. If there's a difference in thickness of more than 0.5 of a millimetre in a single pad, this usually indicates a problem with the caliper. It could need a service, a recondition or even a replacement. Brake pads that wear evenly though with no taper can still tell a story. Differences in thickness between inner and outer pads can also indicate caliper problems. For example, outer pads worn more on the inside can indicate the caliper is binding on its slides, either through excessive wear or lack of lubrication. That means that after applying the brakes, the piston retracts but the outer pad is still contacting the rotor. To prevent binding, clean the caliper slides with the Bendix brake cleaner and lubricate with Bendix Ceramisil brake lubricant. Wear on both pads on one side of the vehicle could indicate the piston couldn't retract, possibly due to corrosion or a damaged rubber piston boot. If the piston is unable to retract, both the pads will be left contacting the disc after braking, causing rapid wear. This could result in the vehicle pulling to the damaged side a while after the brakes are released. In extreme cases of piston binding, the piston may not move at all, causing the opposite wheel to do much more of the braking. This causes premature brake wear and the vehicle could also pull to one side. To prevent corrosion that causes piston binding, regularly bleed out old heat-affected brake fluid and top up with quality Bendix brake fluid. Brake pad identification and checking for symptoms of abnormal pad wear is essential for any brake job. Now that you know, find your nearest Bendix stockist at bendix.com.au.